We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome everyone to Radio Free New York. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining me on this wonderful, beautiful Thursday. I'm flying solo again today, folks, so I would love if you would participate in this conversation. We're live here on WYSL from noon to 1, so give me a call, 585-346-3000. Again, that is 585-346-3000. But of course, shout out to my friends. I'm back online today. No more computer glitches, no more issues with running off of one machine. So thank you, friends, who are listening online on Facebook, on the Andrew C. Hollister page, the Radio Free New York page, the YouTube page. I think we're still on Twitter. We might not be on Twitter anymore. It gets complicated, guys. But thank you all for listening, and appreciate your comments and your feedback on today's show. And, you know, for today's show, goodness, everyone's talking about the VP debate. I got to be honest, I didn't watch it. I had a terrible headache during that debate, and I didn't feel like watching Mike Pence and Kamala Harris go back and forth in that debate was going to help that. So maybe I'll if it's worth commenting on, in addition to the cacophony of all the other commentary that's happening around the debate, then I'll watch it tonight, and I'll see if it's worth commenting on. The only thing I saw coming out of it is that barely anything other than partisan. Kamala was terrible and lied. Mike Pence was terrible and lied and talked down the women or whatever. And then the fly. That's because is that all that happened during the debate? Because that, from reading Facebook, that looks like it was all that happened. If there's anything of substance that's worth talking about, comment, give me a call. But just be aware, I'm coming at that from a point of ignorance, because just couldn't last night. And besides, there's plenty of other interesting stuff going on. Other debate news, just hearing about there's a proposal to do a virtual debate between President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. President Trump said he would not be doing that because he was worried about there being like teleprompters or like scripts and stuff. You know, honestly, I wouldn't care about that. I really wouldn't care if there was some guy behind Biden's camera giving him cue cards. I wouldn't care. And yeah, I wouldn't care if someone did that with Trump either. I don't think it matters to me. I'd rather them make the best argument for their policy positions, because being the president isn't merely speaking off the cuff or just what comes to mind in the moment. It's advisors standing around with the president making policy decisions. That's how actual policy gets played out. So I really wouldn't care. I think that the virtual debate would be fine. Like, in today's age, you know, like I don't have to physically be in the radio studio or in any studio to record an interview. Guys, we have the technology. We could do a virtual debate. It'd be fun. And related to that too, you'd be able to do the mute button, just like you can in Zoom and Google Hangouts meetings. We could mute Joe Biden, or we could mute President Trump when they start to get out of hand. I would enjoy that. I think that would make the debate better. Just let the other person talk. Just do your thing. That shouting match is ridiculous. But we'll see what happens with it. And, you know, it sounds like maybe the debate would get moved too, which is great, because there's a Bills-Chiefs game on that day. And, you know, I kind of want to watch that, but that's just me. But, you know, I would split either way. All right. That's all I got for well, it's not really trivial political news, but kind of. But there's substantive policy happenings going on right now. We are in the midst of discussing whether or not we should do a second, possibly multi-trillion-dollar stimulus, quote-unquote, stimulus package to provide allegedly coronavirus relief for individuals and for businesses. and there was some back and forth going on, some of which caused by President Trump on Twitter, who is at first saying he wouldn't pass any stimulus package unless he won the election. That was what he had initially said. And now he's saying, yes, we're going to pass that. So he'd kind of gone back on that. I think that would have been, well, a curious political move. If it were rooted in principle, and they said, well, we're opposed to X, Y, and Z, and that's why we're not going to pass this. But the way the tweet made it sound, everyone's jumping on him for like, oh, he's just trying to hold the country hostage. If he loses the election, then he's not going to provide relief to Americans. That type of deal. I don't know if that's what he meant by that, but it certainly looked that way initially. Wasn't a great look, but it's back on the table. It may still be happening. You know, it is. Oh, well, what's this one? This one has $3.7 trillion. No, that's what it was passed before, but $2.4 trillion. And President Trump wants to spend $1.6 trillion. At this point, for us, you know, libertarians or folks who were, you know, maybe in the Tea Party movement way back when, y'all remember that 10 years ago? It was a whole thing. For those of us who are in that, like that amount of money just boggles the mind. We were at one point in time talking about fiscal responsibility. The Republican Party at one point in time was talking about, well, how do we make sure that, you know, we are not putting our children and grandchildren in the debt? And now we're talking about spending trillions of dollars. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You know, I actually don't think it's that bad if you are in a good fiscal position to help people out who are actually suffering because the government shut down your businesses or your state because of coronavirus, right? Like if you're in New York State and you lost your job because the government shut you down, I think you could make a fair case that the government owes you that assistance. Now, when I say government, I mean, of course, the rest of us taxpayers, but I would be fine with some amount of help because of a crisis. The government has a legitimate role, I think, in helping with emergency situations. You know, what kills me about this, though, is, again, that's not how this is actually working. It's stimulus for everybody. It's bailouts for companies that don't need it. It's bailouts for companies that are like the airline industry that were already struggling before this, that should have a plan to be able to adapt. And they have so much money. And we're giving them another possibly $75 billion. $75 billion. Imagine what we could do with that. Imagine if that stayed in our pockets. Now, of course, it's not even being extracted from our pockets at this point. It's only a fraction of what we're spending at this point. We're going into debt. We're just piling on and piling on and piling on. Again, I don't have an issue with helping out people in an emergency situation. But what would make it better, or at least more palatable and more survivable for the fiscal health of the country, is if we were responsible in the first place. If we didn't, you know, if we weren't adding on to a $26 trillion debt, if we weren't spending hundreds of billions of dollars in debt service alone, again, paying for the debt that we already have, that would make that more palatable. If we were spending responsibly, when the bad times come, and they're inevitably going to come, there is more wiggle room and it is less expensive to be able to spend this extra money. And again, this is barely, it's numbers that we can't even possibly conceive of. It is beyond the conception of like what people can normally understand. $1 trillion, $26 trillion. I just keep saying that. Again, I still think that's an important issue nowadays, but the Republican Party has moved away from that. The Democratic Party doesn't care. It's all pretend money, and half of them are modern monetary theorists. Go look that term up. Basically, if I'm glossing over a very complicated theory, it's just you can basically spend as much money as you want. It's not going to matter at the end. That's the very, very quick way of saying that theory. We are beyond where we need to get back to a point where we're talking about how can we chip away at this? How can we be responsible again? There's no one, very few people, with only a handful of exceptions, talking about how we can start to get out of this situation, how we can start talking about reducing spending in areas, or reducing the federal bureaucracies, reducing even military spending by a small amount, by reducing the bailouts to politically connected corporations. We have an opportunity to have this discussion. All right, so when we come back in a few minutes, I'll talk more about the specifics of this bill and why, I posed a question being, does capitalism need bailouts? Well, I'll give you the answer to that in the next segment. Thanks again for listening to Radio Free New York. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Escape from the everyday to a getaway at Woodcliff Hotel and Spa. Woodcliff features elegantly appointed accommodations, creative cuisine, themed suites, full-service spa Elan, and is Rochester's best venue for outdoor wedding receptions overlooking the city skyline. Woodcliff Hotel and Spa, where the experience is extraordinary. Located in Fairport, call 585-381-4000 or visit woodcliffhotelspa.com.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
Welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. We're here on WYSL from noon to 1. If you want to participate in the conversation, give us a call, 585-346-3000. Of course, shout out down the line to our friends over at WACK out in Newark and WENY, the Patriot down in the Southern Tier, and our friends listening online on the Radio Free New York page, on the Andrew C. Hollister page, and on the YouTube account. I'm not sure if we're on Twitter right now. I think we're off that. I don't know if Andrew got kicked off Twitter too. He got zucked on Facebook, kicked out of all of his accounts there, and still can't get him back. feel so bad. And then Twitter, I don't know if what we're having the issue there. It's probably something that I've been too lazy to fix. But I got a great comment over the break, regarding like kind of the bailouts and assistance for individuals, and that, and that was calling the government for a bailout after these COVID responses is like calling the arsonist to help you put out the fire. That was a very clever comment from our producer Bob. So thank you for that. And I get it. Unlike natural disasters in like a tornado or hurricane or something, there's at least part of this caused by the government, either in the sense that they were the actual cause of shutting down businesses, like they said you need to shut down, or their inability to be able to deal with COVID effectively. Either way you spin it, that's the government had a hand in the crippling economy that we're seeing nowadays because of the COVID response or lack of COVID response, depending on how you want to look at it. Either way you look at it, I think that the government has a hand in this. And I've said in the past that really the government, the federal government, not merely the Trump administration, but really the kind of entrenched, lifelong professionals at the CDC who failed to respond effectively in the initial coronavirus response are really some of the biggest groups to blame for why we were able to respond less effectively to coronavirus and why it started to get a bit out of control. And now we're at where we're at, and we're seeing continued challenges in some industries where people don't want to travel, people don't want to be out. I see it in my own work. I do digital advertising for folks, and I see the challenges that many businesses in the area face with trying to get people out to just buy products. And if you're not adapted to the e-commerce space, if you are still required to have people to go out and about or to come to you to purchase a product, it is tough. It is incredibly tough. And we see that with Regal Cinemas movie theaters temporarily closing all of their U.S. locations. A lot of movies are getting delayed. People don't want to go out. I don't think that one was a private decision. That wasn't necessarily a government decision, although it is in some places. But they're looking at what's going on, and they're like, people don't want to be in an enclosed room next to a bunch of people, and or they can't make a profit if they spread people out adequately enough anyway. So that's a tough situation for them, and that is circumstances related to fear of the virus, in addition to government restrictions on being able to go out to some of these places. But the theater industry, at least not yet, is probably not going to get a bailout. Probably not going to happen. I don't see it, but maybe. Who knows? The stimulus bill, the HEROES Act, it's still in negotiation. So there may be someone from Regal or one of the other executives in the movie industry, the lobbyists in the movie industry, or the cinema industry, trying to get that sweet bailout money specific to their industry, not a general government support like we saw with the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, not general support, a specific carve-out. And that's what the airline industry got. And this was from the previous bailout, back when what was it called, the CARES Act. And they got $50 billion in bailouts and $25 billion in subsidized loans to help keep airline workers employed through the end of last month. But since people still weren't really ready to fly at the same level, and it's difficult to fly too. I've had friends who've looked and they're like, "Oh, can I fly from New York to this other state or whatever, and then come back?" Well, if you do that, you're gonna get shaken down in the airport, told you have to quarantine for a couple weeks. Which if you're going to a high infection area, maybe you should. But a lot of people are like, "Well, I'd rather drive." I'd rather just not deal with the hassle. I don't want to be in a small, enclosed, pressurized space with someone who might be sick. It's tough. It's tough for the airline to be able to survive in this situation. I get it. But, the airlines met their obligations. They kept people employed through the end of the month. And then as soon as they could, they furloughed 32,000 employees. Just cut them out. And actually, side note, what grinds my gears about that a bit too is that the airline industry, United Airlines still, I think it was United Airlines, still supported the Commission on Presidential Debates, which, you guys heard my rant about that on Tuesday if you were listening to the show. I'm a little bit grumpy about them. They still excluded Dr. Jorgensen and had their debates. But, of course, the United Airlines, along with several other industries like Anheuser-Busch, they support that debate. It's and sponsor it. But despite getting that bailout, no, that's they're still cutting their jobs as soon as they were able to. And now there's again more talk of continued bailouts again, and I don't think it's going to be getting better anytime soon. And this is an industry that even if the coronavirus numbers don't go up significantly, it's going to be rough sledding for the next 2 years. So that being said, should the government be bailing it out? Does the airline industry need this to be able to survive? And I asked the question because I see a bunch of, I think, lefties who aren't acting in good faith, but they asked the question, doesn't capitalism need bailouts like this to be able to survive, to be able to support major industries like this? And they, harken back to like the banking industry. Does airline need bailouts to do this? And would the industry itself, not merely the airlines who are here now, but the industry itself survive without the bailouts? Now, this goes back to a stance that I think a lot of people who are pro-government constantly think about. And they can't imagine a world in which a problem isn't solved by government. And I don't mean that just to be glib too. I mean that they can't, every problem that exists in society, they think, well, the government needs to do something about that. And if the government doesn't do something about it, then the problem simply won't get solved. They can't imagine that unprompted, that unforced, that the market would respond to various needs that our society has. And I think they see the same thing with the airline industry. They can't imagine that maybe, despite, the airline industries have a lot of incentive to ask for these bailouts. Of course they do. There's a lot of incentive not to change. There's a lot of incentive for them to continue being profitable. There's a lot of incentive for them to, just stay as they're doing now. Why wouldn't they ask for a bailout and make this case? That being said, imagine a world in which people just adapt. They just say, okay, well, let's adapt to what routes are profitable. Let's think about how we can prioritize customer safety and start to win over people again, to make sure that they feel safe flying on a plane. Let's think about how they renegotiate what's going on with the unions in the industry too. How do the workers who are in the unions and their representatives work together to make sure that the industry itself can survive, because they have a lot of incentive to be able to do that. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of the needs of workers in the union to negotiate for adequate pay and all that stuff, but there's going to have to be stuff that's going to have to happen. There's going to have to be changes in how the industry itself approaches things. That when you reach a moment of crisis like this, it's also an opportunity for innovation. When you end up getting bailouts, the challenge is that you end up locking a stagnant industry in place and failing to adapt to the circumstances at hand. All right, we'll talk more about this and some other federal level stuff coming up after the next break. Thanks again for joining us on Radio Free New York. We'll talk to you soon.
vote for law and order. AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for today. We'll see some clouds out there breaking for a bit of partial sunshine. A little bit of a breeze, but not nearly as windy as yesterday. Temps in the 50s. Mainly dry, but we will see a couple of showers out there developing during the afternoon hours. Also clear up tonight. We'll drop into the 40s. Friday, a beautiful day with some sunshine. Turning milder again with temps in the mid-60s. I'm Rich Cadilia, WYSL.
Heads up, economic hardship, loss of jobs, arbitrary closure of valuable businesses, all brought to you by Democrats. Remember, in November.
This fall is a great time to shop at Victor Chevrolet. Come see how easy it is to do business with us. Winter driving will be safe and fun when you lease a 2020 Equinox front-wheel drive LS. Just $179 a month for 24 months. Or enjoy the security of a tough and roomy 2021 Blazer LS. Lease for only $139 a month for 24 months. Lease a 2020 Chevy Trax LS all-wheel drive for just $98 a month for 24 months.
For Equinox, Trax, or Trailblazer, must have current lease and household. $2,500 cash or trade. First payment, tax, acquisition, and DMV fees are all due at signing for all leases.
Prefer to buy? Save big when you buy a 2019 Trax LT all-wheel drive with convenience package, power drive seat, and keyless entry and start. MSRP $26,145.
Selling for only $19,215.
$229 a month for 84 months with approved credit. This fall, find new roads at Victor Chevrolet, Route 96 in Victor. Visit victorchevrolet.com.
Hello, I'm Alan Ginsberg of the A.M. Ginsberg Advisory Group. Hope you're coping well with the changes we've all had to make in day-to-day living during these crazy times. So, now that you've done all your projects, cooked every new recipe you have, and made your YouTube videos, ask yourself, are your financial plans and investments working in today's world? Is your family secure if you die or become disabled? Are the wills you made 10 or 20 years ago still valid today? Now may be the time to evaluate where you are financially and review your estate planning as well. We're available for appointments by phone or Zoom meeting, or we can meet in my office with CDC compliant procedures. Please give us a call, 585-377-4720, or check out our website at amginsbergadvisorygroup.com.
Securities offered through Securities America, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Securities America Advisors, Inc., A.M. Ginsberg Advisory Group, and the Securities America companies are separate entities.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Inside the Taylor Laboratories.
Hey, Tony, what you doing?
A little experiment, Zach. Look what I have under the microscope.
Ugh, what's that?
A sample of indoor air.
How can it be that dirty? Don't AC and furnace filters help?
Only with dust, Zach. But when Taylor installs a whole house APCO air purifier to detox the air, odors, chemicals, mold, bacteria, and viruses are removed.
For clean indoor air.
Yep. Ain't science awesome?
Taylor, 500 help.
Medicare. Polano & Company makes it easy. If you are new to Medicare or reviewing your options, give Polano & Company a call. We're local and can help you make your best decision at no cost to you. Polano & Company is located at 15 Schoen Place on the Canal in Pittsford. Call us at 585-385-6010 or visit us at polanoco.com. Polano & Company, serving the greater Rochester area for more than 35 years.
Next time you have a chance to speak with your elected representative, ask, what are you doing? What have you done to protect our right to keep and bear arms? Check their voting records. We do. Brought to you by Monroe County Scope. Alive and well. Join us.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again for joining us here live on WYSL, noon to 1. Give me a call if you want to participate in the conversation, 585-346-3000. Again, that's 585-346-3000. Are you a supporter of government bailouts? Do you like your taxpayer money going to big, well-connected corporations? If you're a fan of that, give us a call. And if you're not a fan of that, give us a call. Either way, I'd love to see the pro-bailout position on this show because, well, really, I want to have that discussion. I think that would be more interesting than what I'm doing now. Guys, I'm going to give you the one-sided view on this. I'm not a fan of bailouts. I ain't. It's not a good use of policy. Really, the risk of an industry running into trouble, industry or an individual company running into trouble, should be bared by the investors. They shouldn't be bared by us, the taxpayers. That we are not responsible if circumstances or just bad management or whatever it is befalls an industry or befalls an individual company. The investors are responsible for that. We can't, what we end up doing, what the federal government ends up doing is privatizing the risk of privatizing the risk, oh man, I'm getting my words mixed up. Socializing the risk of investing in a company while privatizing the profits that come from that. That ain't right. It's immoral. For you, if you're going to take a risk, it needs to be exactly that. It needs to be a risk. There's a chance you could lose your money. But we can't do that and socialize the results and say, like, well, really, we're going to let you keep all the profits from that, but if something goes wrong, well, we're going to have you back. You're not actually going to lose anything. It's not a risk then. It's corrupt. And Garrett, thank you for the comment. Good old-fashioned creative destruction. Absolutely right, Garrett. That's what we need to have a healthy economy. And it's messy. It's not always good for the people, or it's not always great for the people involved. But overall, for the health of the economy, the more the government intervenes and starts poking its fingers in here and there and elsewhere, it's unhealthy. And Bob Schuen says it's a moral hazard. It is a moral hazard. Again, it gets people to make bad investments. If we look back to the bank bailouts back in 2008 too, the reason why this is glossing over a big complicated issue, but the reason why a lot of these bad investments happened, why they're breaking up and doing these subprime mortgages along with breaking up the I forget what the exact term is called, but breaking up these investments and dispersing them all over the place is because they knew that they were probably going to get bailed out. That's exactly what it was. Is they knew they could make these risky investments because the government was going to have their back, because they wouldn't possibly want the banking industry to fail. So let's make the risky investments. Let's profit off of them while we still can. And when the system collapses, then who cares? Eric Cooper asks, what about the idea that there are systemic risks, like banking especially? In an ideal libertarian world, risk is privatized, but what about the reality of our world today that is already so manipulated as to prevent that? Eric's trying to be a devil's advocate here, because I know where Eric's coming from on most things, but systemic risks in banking. Let's see. Let's unravel that a bit. I guess if I'm trying to make a generous argument in the other direction in the banking industry specifically, is that it helps the entire system to allow banks to make riskier investments, because it makes people who might not otherwise have the credit worthiness to access capital and loans, it would shut them out of the system altogether. Right? So that's I said I wouldn't do this, but that's making the best case scenario for that. Like, I only say that just because I want you to understand that, and I want you to know that I understand that. I'm aware of the other side of this argument. But to me, again, there are significant trade-offs to that approach. There's significant trade-offs. You again are extracting capital, you're extracting money from everyone else to subsidize those bad policies. You're creating systems that are in fact too big to fail. And instead of having systems that bring more people into that open up opportunities for capital for other people, that work with characters, or you work with that if you work with people who are able to prove that ideas are good and able to get these loans, if you're able to still do that, and you're still able to do things like angel investors and charitable investment, if you're able to do all those things, I think that we don't have to be locked into the system that we have now. We don't have to be locked into a system that ends up being incredibly top-heavy, that ends up creating all these regulations that centralize power in a small number of people, and that when they do make an overabundance of risky investments, that we are going to end up with a system that collapses in its entirety. I think there's a virtue in having a system that is, maybe not redundant is quite the right word I'm looking for, but that's complicated and decentralized. And you miss some opportunities for the advantage that can come with decentralization of capital, but you also lose the risk with that. And again, we're talking about a big systems approach here. I think it's better to have decentralized systems where there is fewer risks on the systematic level. That if a single bank collapses on the local level, a single bank, credit union, whatever financial institution it is on the local level, it's not going to cause a nationwide collapse. And that's what we have now, is that when one of the big banks runs into trouble, it causes trouble for the entire system itself. And that's incredibly dangerous. And it creates a lot of moral hazard for them to make risky investments that privatize their profits while socializing their risks. And we end up with a system that, and again, props up the politically well-connected. And it's hard for smaller banks and smaller institutions, or if we're talking about other industries like the airlines, it makes it harder for them to break through the mold. It makes them harder for them to get started and to get moving and to be able to compete in that same space. So just on the system-wide level, the libertarian vision for this is, again, no guarantee that the government is going to bail you out, that you have to assess your risk appropriately. If it's worthwhile to you to invest in risky loans, in subprime mortgages, in risky credit accounts, whatever you're doing, if it's worth the risk to you, knowing that you might lose that, then fine. You can make some money off of that too, but you might lose some money. That's what it is. So, as banks are building their portfolios, they're gonna to get some safe investments. They're gonna get some stuff that's really stable, like corporate bonds in a lot of cases, or government treasury bills, and then backing some of these. As they're building their portfolio, they're going to diversify that and assess their risk appropriately. The libertarian vision is that no one gets that special exemption. No one's going to say, well, I'm politically well connected, but the system is too reliant on me. If we have a system that's too reliant on a small number of actors, it is unstable, is unsustainable. We can't do that. We can't continue to operate that way. And I think the same thing again with the airline industry. Let them do bankruptcy. Let the investors bear the risk of the situations. And I know that stinks for the investors, but that's the risk that you took. That is how it needs to go. It is not fair. It is not just for the rest of us to have to pay for that. And again, you have to decide too, what other industries get those special protections? Why isn't the theater industry doing it? Why isn't the manufacturing industry getting that? And manufacturing is so broad that we can't do it. I don't believe in subsidies anywhere. I believe in markets. And that is the fairest way to do things. That is the most resilient way to do things. It's the most just way to do things, and it will create a stronger economy for all of us when we don't have the government meddling in every aspect of our economic lives. All right. That's all I got. That's all I got on that issue for now. So when we come back, I want to talk about this new Cato Institute report that came out about fiscal health of states. I'll give you one guess what grade New York State got. We'll be back here on Radio Free New York in just a few minutes.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
If you're looking to market and grow your business, make new business connections, and give back to the community in a meaningful way, consider joining the Greece Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're the largest suburban chamber in Monroe County, and we offer networking, education, marketing, insurance, and advocacy. You do not need to live or work in Greece to join. Our members come from throughout the region. In short, we're better together, and together, we're moving business forward. Visit greecechamber.org or call 585-227-7272 to join today.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Radio Free New York.
Welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for the day. Again, if you want to participate in this conversation, I'm talking about bailouts today, and I'm about to talk about what New York State is doing and the fiscal grade New York State got. But give us a call, 585-346-3000. And thanks again for the comments that I'm getting online. I'm getting a comment from Garrett Gaines that there may be some market forces acting in the banking industry since 2008 in terms of people moving more their family assets from big-name bailout banks to smaller banks and credit unions. Yeah, no, I think that might be true. I hear a bit of that. I hear a few people kind of trying to work with local banks and small credit unions on that stuff. So, yeah, that would be an interesting thing that I have not studied. I have no idea what what's going on in that industry in terms of people shifting towards their smaller local credit unions in response to the 2008 bailout. Anecdotally, I hear a lot of people say that, but in terms of actual dollars, not sure. It's a great question. I'll have to look that up sometime. Now, said before the break, the Cato Institute has their 2020 Governor's Fiscal Report Card. And, of course, New York State is evaluated in this system. and Andrew Cuomo. Let's anyone care to take a guess how he did, folks listening online? Did he get an A, B, C, D, or F? Of course you know the show. You guys know how this is going to go. You know how we feel about Governor Cuomo. It's right there in the intro. And, of course, Governor Cuomo got an F this year. Yeah, in this report, it's like a couple paragraphs long, so I'll try to give you the quick summary of it. It kind of gives Cuomo credit. Initially, said he's a centrist, reform pensions and improve business and individual income tax cuts, and now he's shifting to the left, far enough to the left that he got an F on this report. And most of this report, interestingly enough, is only taking into account the 2019 stuff, and I think it actually leaves a lot of stuff out in this. It says in 2019, he approved a tax hike package that included a 5-year extension of temporary income tax increases on high earners to raise about $4 billion a year. And of course, it's strange because they point out that because of the federal tax reforms of 2017, it limited the deductibility of state and local taxes. So basically, you can't deduct from your federal income tax the stuff that you're paying on the state level. And so that greatly increased the amount of taxes that high-income earners are paying in New York State to the federal tax level. And it's creating a lot of incentives for the wealthy that New York State is becoming increasingly dependent upon for its budget. It creates a lot of incentives for them to move out. And so between the budget crises that we're facing in 2020, which of course the Governor Cuomo has near unilateral control over being able to make modifications to the budget and to state law at this point. But, it says that, New York State in recent years is losing 2 taxpayers who are earning more than $200,000 per year for every one who comes into the state. And the state is becoming increasingly dependent on those types of individuals and families on its own state budget. And there's more calls to increase taxes on the top 1%. But it's just going to make it more difficult for us to keep those types of folks here. There's because people are able to easily move from state to state. We can't count on people staying. A lot of them are down in New York City too. Like if you're in New York City and you're earning that amount, why wouldn't you move to another close by state where maybe you pay a little bit less in taxes? Why wouldn't you? I mean, maybe you like living in the city, but the state, every time we lose some of these individuals, there's a consequence. So would it make more sense for us to have a tax policy that incentivizes people to stay here? And I know this is a crazy thought. They're related to New York government, but maybe spend responsibly? I don't know. That's totally ridiculous, right? Spending responsibly. Foreign language among the Democratic-controlled legislature and Andrew Cuomo. But a guy can dream, right? That would be my hope. This report calls out specifically, that the governor should do more to reduce the size of New York government so that tax rates can be cut. Again, we have incredibly high taxes. We're often at the bottom of lists in terms of tax freedom in the state overall, but particularly when it comes to economic freedom, we're at the bottom of the list. And people like Governor Cuomo, and maybe he knows he's doing this, maybe he doesn't, but the Democrats scratch their head and like, why is business stuck in upstate New York? What is going on? Well, it's because of these tax burdens on individuals and the regulations and tax burdens on companies that are here. And again, going back to that too, their solution to that often ends up being, well, we can just subsidize businesses that are coming here. We'll just give massive subsidies, and we'll create these regional economic councils that will give away taxpayer money, again, spending more of our money in order to attract companies here. But you end up with a downward spiral. Again, the politically connected are able to get these subsidies, while the average person, it's very, very difficult to continue living in the state and working in the state and operating a business in the state. It's unsustainable. We're now in a downward spiral of let's extract more money from taxpayers and give it away to the politically connected. And so between all this, and again, it doesn't mention this, any of that stuff. That's just me adding context. But Governor Cuomo is continuing to approve large increases in general spending. Spending increased 4.4% in 2019 and 8.6% in 2020. Just a huge amount. And I think a lot of that increase in 2020 might be related to unemployment, things like that. Again, what I talked about at the beginning of the show is that we need to be fiscally responsible in the good times, so when the bad times come, we can take it. We can be prepared. It's great. I don't have necessarily an objection to that, but we want to be prepared when an emergency happens. Okay, maybe there is a good way to respond to that effectively, and we can do that without totally crushing the fiscal situation in our state. Let's see, what else we got here. Under Cuomo, from 2011 to 2020, general fund spending increased at a rapid 4% annual average rate, even though the state's population remained completely flat over the period. Yeah, no, that's another part of that. And this doesn't even go into some of the what do you call it, the Medicaid spending shenanigans that Governor Cuomo was doing with shifting budgets around. That doesn't even go into all that type of stuff, which is, again, mostly just Governor Cuomo shifting budgets around to make it look like everything's fine, when in reality it's kind of a mess. So it's pushing stuff around to give the illusion that everything is being handled effectively. No, it's not. If you're a longtime listener of Radio Free New York, you've heard me talk about it. You've heard Andrew talk about it. You've heard other individuals who are on the show talk about it. Steve Becker, who is an assembly candidate, talked about this too when he was a guest on the show. New York State is in precarious fiscal position. We've spent ourselves to the point where the general spending is unsustainable, and the Democrats' only solution to that is to tax our way out of this mess. But with so many New Yorkers leaving, that is not a good solution. That is not sustainable. We can't tax our way into prosperity. We need to find a way to lower and stabilize taxes, to reduce regulations, to make it easier for businesses to operate, to lower the requirements for things like occupational licensing, to make it easier for people to live and thrive in New York State. That's how we're going to succeed as a state, is by getting the government out of the way, and not just, we'll just help out the people who are politically connected. We'll help out the people related to the IDA, who are able to get the IDA money, the Industrial Development Agency money, and the other stuff. No, that's not how we're going to fix things. It's by making a fair, simple, and effective system, both in terms of taxes and regulations. That's how we will get New York State to thrive. But, and again, a guy can dream, right? If we want to do that, you have to start holding people accountable. Not just Democrats. I've been using a lot of my fire into Democrats this segment, but it's Republicans too. It's both parties. Look for the candidates who are, and policymakers and other advocates who are talking about what I talked about today. All right, thanks again for joining us here on Radio Free New York. I will be back tomorrow. More Radio Free New York. Talk to you then.